The day I initiated the divorce, Adrian couldn't wait to draft the divorce agreement. 5 years ago, he was forced to marry me, and now he's finally completely free. On the day we finalized the divorce, Adrian brought his white moonlight, looking both pleased and mocking. Evelyn, you finally had such a humiliating day. I watched his back gradually blur in my line of sight. Pathetic. Next life, I won't be. The moment I proposed divorce, Adrian stood in front of me staring for a long time. So long it felt like he was trying to bore a hole through me with his gaze. It wasn't until I took out the divorce agreement and signed my name that he snapped back to reality, his fingers pinching the document as he examined it over and over. I knew he must have been somewhat in disbelief, that I, who had been entangled with him for 5 years, would actually initiate the divorce. A long time passed before he finally tossed the agreement aside, the corner of his mouth curling into an almost imperceptible sneer. I can't understand this agreement. I'll need to have my team of professional lawyers review it. I tightened my grip on the pen and explained, no need, I'll leave with nothing. I want nothing, he said unhappily. How do I know you won't scheme against me? I looked up at him and suddenly remembered that night 5 years ago. After all these years, he still held a grudge, but after all this time, he should know better than anyone what kind of person I am. I simply threw the pen aside and sat there. Fine, I'll come back when you've drafted the agreement. With that, I got up to leave. He stopped me, not letting me go. Just wait here, it won't take long. He seemed eager to draw a clear line between us, walking so briskly that he disappeared the moment the door opened. I slumped onto the sofa. In the eerily quiet office, the doctor's words echoed in my mind again. Late-stage leukemia, perhaps not even a chance for a bone marrow transplant. I let out a sigh, watching the figure disappear at the door. Perhaps he wouldn't care at all. Blood gushed from my nose. I wiped it with my hand but couldn't clean it properly, so I quickly pressed a tissue against it. Adrian's desk tissues were instantly depleted by half from my frantic grabbing. Luckily, no one saw. Soon, Adrian walked in with a new divorce agreement. Seeing me look up with my hand still in the motion of stopping the bleeding, he seemed slightly surprised. What are you doing? I quickly tossed the tissue into the trash and sat down with a composed expression. When I took the agreement, I noticed the additional clause he had added at the end. All items not belonging to me must be left behind, including jewelry, even clothes, shoes, and the like. None of these were mine. I knew who those things were meant for, and I had never dared to covet them. Quickly signed the document and handed it to Adrian. After double-checking, he finally spoke. Evelyn, I hope you keep your word. I don't want to see you again. I know how much he despises me. For these 5 years, he never once looked at me. I looked at the familiar figure waiting at the door and nodded. We probably won't meet again. In the 5 years I was married to Adrian, I rarely bought anything. The jewelry, clothes, and bags he bought for me were never used. After signing the divorce agreement, I only took a bag with a few changes of clothes and left. Now I feel like a homeless person. After thinking for a long time, I finally dialed my brother's number. Actually, I do have a family. 5 years ago, there were parents who loved me and a gentle older brother. I hadn't contacted my brother in a long time. The phone rang for a while before it was finally answered. A slightly impatient voice poured into my ears. What is it? I froze for a moment, feeling inexplicably wronged. Brother, I want to go home. My brother seemed to think for a long time before finally uttering a few words. We'll talk when you get back. The way home led through a narrow path, a dark space without a single glimmer of light. In my dazed state, I saw my brother's familiar figure crossing the path. He knew I was afraid of the dark and had come to take me home. I reached out my hand, but the figure ahead vanished once again. And I was still standing on that dimly lit path. I can no longer remember when my brother last came down this path to pick me up. Suppressing my fear, I finally made it home, seeing my brother sitting in the living room with a grim expression. Before I could even take a seat, he forcefully threw a stack of papers at me. I picked them up and looked closely. They were all terminated project contracts. What have you done? I didn't argue back. It seems Adrian told my brother the news as soon as he divorced me, and then used this method to take revenge on the Xie family. Evelyn, when you schemed so hard to climb into Adrian's bed, did you ever imagine it would come to this? now that Adrian is tired of you and has discarded you. You want to return to the Xie family. Do we owe you something? The Xie family will be ruined by you sooner or later. My brother's eyes were bloodshot at this moment, unable to control his emotions. It was the first time in 5 years he had spoken so much to me, venting his emotions in front of me. I knew he had always blamed me in his heart, but none of us had an easy time these past 5 years. I held back my tears as that stack of papers came hurling at me, the familiar dizziness instantly sobering me up. I tightly covered my nose. After a long while, no blood came out, thank goodness. Only when my brother had calmed down did I speak. I'll do my best to repay what I owe the Xie family. I don't know how much time I have left with my illness, but before I die, I'll do everything I can to repay what I owe them. My brother looked me up and down as if he'd heard a joke. With what? He asked. After saying that, he suddenly remembered something. Tonight Adrian has a dinner with these business partners. Come with me to find him and ask for his help. I'm already divorced from him. Then tell me, how can you help, Evelyn? Only the Liu family can help us now. Before I could speak, my brother had already taken those contracts and left with me. I never expected to see Adrian again so soon. He was in a great mood tonight, drinking every toast offered by business partners without refusing a single one. Only my brother and I sat in the corner, like forgotten clowns. He didn't even touch the glass my brother raised to toast the past. The others at the table exchanged knowing looks and began mocking us. It seems the Xie family truly doesn't know what's good for them. Mr. Liu has given them so many projects, and now they're eyeing ours. Such a big appetite. Be careful not to choke on greed. My brother's face darkened, but he quickly forced a smile. All those projects have been suspended. We can only hope Mr. Liu will throw us a bone. Adrian looked annoyed and pointed at me. Want new projects? Then she's the one who should toast. My brother looked flustered, glanced at me, and began to explain. She can't drink. I'll keep Mr. Liu company. Adrian remained still, staring at me. He always relished any opportunity to make things difficult for me. My brother stepped in front of me, trying to smooth things over. After all, you were once husband and wife. Don't make it hard for her. I'll drink this. The liquor was over 50 proof. My brother downed one glass after another until his face turned red and he could drink no more. Finally vomiting with a loud retch, Adrian found it disgusting and quickly stepped aside, wiping his hands with a handkerchief. I went forward to help my brother, but he pushed me toward Adrian. Hurry up and apologize to Mr. Liu so he can help our Xie family. I picked up the baijiu on the table and downed it in one gulp. I knew Adrian wanted to see me like this. My stomach churned violently, and the plea on the tip of my tongue turned into, we'll find a way to repay the debt the Xie family owes. It's fine if Mr. Liu doesn't want to give us these projects. Hearing this, my brother instantly sobered up and, in a fit of anger, slapped me across the face. Do you even realize what you're saying? Without the Liu family's help, our Xie family is doomed. How do you plan to repay all those debts, Evelyn? Do you know how Mom and Dad died? My head buzzed as if a needle had been driven into it, and I nearly collapsed, swaying to one side. Adrian seemed to have no patience for watching us act out this scene. Seeing me fall to the ground, he sneered mockingly, "Stop putting on a show in front of me. It makes me sick." Then, he walked past me, and as I looked up, I saw him holding the door for Sophie outside, leaving without a backward glance. I desperately suppressed the nausea in my stomach, my fingertips digging painfully into my palms. A warm liquid trickled from my nose, and my brother stared at me in shock. "Evelyn, what's wrong with you?" I'm not at the point where I need to use this illness to win his sympathy, so I replied lightly, drank too fast, got a bit overheated. A flash of panic crossed his eyes before his expression returned to its usual coldness. "The Xie family is about to collapse because of you. Mom and Dad died because of you. Evelyn, how can a jinx like you still live so carefreely?" I know my brother only said such things because he was furious. In truth, he used to be very good to me. But it's also true that he hates me now. That incident 5 years ago, it seems like only I was in the wrong. Suddenly feeling exhausted, I wiped my face roughly and walked out the door alone. The biting wind cut to the bone, and the streets were nearly empty. Large patches of dried blood clung to my face as I scrubbed hard with my sleeve, remembering Adrian's parting words, "I find it disgusting." Somehow, my body suddenly lost all strength, and I collapsed. I knew he was also referring to what happened 5 years ago. When it comes down to it, everything that happened 5 years ago was my fault. It's only natural that they hate me. Back then, I had just graduated from university and started an internship at the best law firm, with a bright future ahead. But I was so busy that I hardly ever went home. My parents were worried about me and planned to sell our house to settle in the city where I worked. Houses in the capital are extremely expensive. To come find me as soon as possible, they took on a construction project and acted as guarantors, but in a moment of carelessness, the person in charge ran off with the money, and suddenly, a massive debt was dumped on them. From that time on, my brother and I would often receive debt collection calls. Later, my parents, with no way out, were forced onto the rooftop by debt collectors. On the day they jumped, I happened to be away on a business trip with my boss, handling pre-IPO legal disputes for Adrian's company. At the dinner table, Adrian was humble and courteous, knowing exactly when to advance or retreat. When he complimented me, there was always a gentle smile on his face. I turned my head to look at him, meeting his pitch-black eyes, and my heart inexplicably raced. After a drink, when I woke up again, things had spiraled out of control. Mom and Dad jumped off the rooftop, creditors came knocking at the door, and my brother's desperate call came through, "Evelyn, come home quickly, something happened to Mom and Dad." That day, Adrian and I were cornered by a swarm of reporters at the door, as news broke about Adrian's chaotic private life. To ensure the company's smooth IPO, he had no choice but to lie and claim we had been in a long-term relationship. I originally planned to cooperate with Adrian to clarify the truth after handling family matters, but when I saw my parents lying in that cold morgue, I suddenly felt unwilling to accept it. Burdened with massive debt, I could hardly muster the energy to find the person who harmed my parents, so I changed my mind and said I would marry Adrian, using him to achieve my goals. I still remember his shocked, disbelieving expression during the press conference. As if he had been torn apart, I followed him to his house and asked to borrow money from him. He was truly furious and slammed the card hard against my head. "Stop following me, you disgust me." It was completely different from the humble and polite Adrian I had seen. That night I saw Sophie come to him, leaning into his arms and sobbing quietly. I didn't have much mind to think about anything else, so I transferred the money to my brother and told him to pay off the debt first. My brother then scolded me for being shameless. In the end, all those things were my fault. I collapsed by the roadside, the cold seeping into my bones. Someone gently pushed me and carefully picked me up. "Evelyn. Evelyn." I couldn't quite tell if this voice belonged to Adrian or my brother again. I slowly opened my eyes to see an unfamiliar face. None of it was real, it was all just my imagination. I touched my face and forehead again, burning like boiling water, seeing my face covered in blood. I gave the kind stranger who woke me up quite a fright. With all my strength, I propped up my body. My head felt as heavy as a cannonball. My elder brother asked if I needed him to call an ambulance for me. I shook my head and declined his kind offer. I dragged my battered body to the hospital all by myself. The sky was already bright, and my frozen, stiff body gradually began to warm up. I registered with another doctor and waited quietly. Dr. Chen looked at me sitting alone on the corridor bench with a puzzled expression. "Why are you sitting here? Are you feeling unwell?" I looked up at him, feeling a bit guilty. "I have a fever, came to get some medicine. Come in with me. Let me take a look." Seeing that I wasn't moving, he stopped and asked, "What's wrong?" I made an appointment with another doctor. "It's nothing serious, just need to get some cold medicine and I'll be fine." "Evelyn," seeing the man in front of me getting angry, I finally got up and followed him inside. Truth is, I just didn't want to trouble him. Every time I come to Dr. Chen, he either waives my consultation fee or pays for my medicine. I owe him too much. Afraid I won't be able to repay it all before I die. After assessing my condition, Dr. Chen's eyebrows instantly knitted together, and he said gravely, "The situation is getting worse, you should be hospitalized as soon as possible." I rebooked his appointment on my phone and said with feigned nonchalance, No need, since it can't be cured anyway. I might as well earn more money. Dr. Chen, could you prescribe me some medicine to stop the bleeding? It seems like the bleeding episodes are becoming more frequent lately. Michael knew about my condition and immediately fell silent. I saw the corners of his eyes turn red as he discreetly turned away for a long moment before speaking again. You still need to be hospitalized. Don't worry about the money. Next time, I interrupted him, not letting him finish. His open mouth closed again, and he remained silent for a while. In the end, it was me who broke the heavy silence. Dr. Chen mentioned last time about referring a case to me. Can I still take it? He refused immediately. Your current health condition isn't suitable for work. Left with no choice. I pleaded with him for a long time before he reluctantly agreed to share his friend's contact information with me. Seeing the concern in his eyes, I reassured him. Don't worry, I'll do my best to help your friend win this case. After some thought, I understood what he was worried about and reassured him again. Once I earn the money, I'll come to the hospital right away. The past couple of weeks have gone smoothly for me. The case involving Dr. Chen's friend was easy to handle. With ample evidence, and it will be closed in another week. Looking at the final payment deposited into my bank account, I knew it was only because of Dr. Chen's influence that they trusted me so much. So I called Dr. Chen to arrange a meal together, wanting to properly thank him. At the restaurant, I happened to run into his colleague again, so we decided to share a table. Just as everyone had taken their seats, another person walked in through the door. I looked up and saw it was Adrian. He showed no expression when he saw me, simply pulled out a chair and sat down. He was good friends with the department head who worked in the same unit as Michael, and got along well with them too. Yet, for some reason, his gaze toward Michael was particularly unfriendly. During the gathering, Michael helped me fend off the drinks. While he was the one encouraging others to drink, I remember Miss Xie has a good drinking capacity. Why not show some face today? Michael looked displeased and refused on my behalf. She can't drink. Adrian appeared relentless and stepped forward to pour me a drink. Can you drink it clearly, Miss Xie? The tone was full of threat. I knew that if I didn't drink today, he would soon target Michael. He always resorts to unscrupulous means. I didn't want to implicate Michael, so I picked up the full glass of wine and downed it in one go. The strong liquor burned my throat, heart, and lungs. I drink one glass. Adrian accompanies with one. After drinking many cups in a row, I was heavily drunk. Seeing the situation was not right, everyone tried to stop me. Miss Xie, you have quite a capacity for alcohol. Let's drink again another time. It's about enough for today. Adrian seemed unwilling to let me off and continued pouring wine. His friend stopped him and joked, if you keep drinking, your wife will come to hold me accountable. Adrian froze for a moment, staring at me. I panicked. Apart from Dr. Chen, they didn't know that Adrian had married me 5 years ago. We're divorced. She has no right to control me. For a fleeting moment, I had the illusion that his tone sounded like a sulky, jealous remark, but when I looked up, his eyes were filled with unmistakable hatred. I realized he had always hated me. From the moment I separated him and Sophie 5 years ago, Dr. Chen helped me out the door. He wanted to see me off. But I don't have a fixed place to stay now. I don't even know where to go myself. So I refused. The alcohol was getting to my head, and I fought back nausea as I decided to book the nearest hotel, just to make it through the night. In my dazed state, I thought I saw Adrian following behind me, but my head was spinning badly, and the pitch-black night blurred my vision. So many things were unclear. I checked into a room, and just as the door was about to close, someone suddenly barged in, grabbing my arm and throwing me onto the bed. My stomach churned violently, and I rushed to the bathroom to vomit. In the mirror, I saw Adrian standing right behind me, unmistakably real. He pinched my chin, forcing me to look up at him. His tone was laced with hostility. It seems Miss Xie has been quite popular with the opposite sex since our divorce. I wanted to explain but felt it might be unnecessary. Adrian, seeing my silence, suddenly flared up with inexplicable anger and forcefully shoved me aside. He gritted his teeth and said, Evelyn, don't forget we're still married. I could barely hear what he was saying anymore, as I was suddenly reminded of that night when he was embracing Sophie. Afraid that the swarm of reporters might notice, I anxiously grabbed his hand and placed it around my waist, then leaned against him. Back then, he had also pushed me away with the same force, utterly disgusted. "Evelyn, don't forget we're not even married yet." I collapsed, my body weak, a metallic taste rising in my throat. Before losing consciousness, I heard his urgent voice, "Evelyn, what's wrong with you?" I woke up in the hospital, alone. Just as I was wondering who had brought me here, Adrian walked in holding some papers. Our eyes met, and he said, "You vomited so much blood after drinking just a little. Anyone would think you've got some terminal illness and are trying to pin it on me." My heart instantly leaped into my throat, thinking he had found out. He threw the examination report at me. Hard liquor damages the stomach, and the diagnosis was just a gastric hemorrhage. Then came the sarcasm again. "5 years ago, you used the same trick to scheme against me." He had always believed that 5 years ago, I got him drunk and then step by step manipulated him into marrying me. But that incident was thoroughly investigated. We just happened to drink a bit too much in high spirits. And the problem was with the last 2 glasses of wine brought by the waiter. It was his business rival who deliberately sent them over. I just happened to be there. Later, he was forced to marry me, which also tore him apart from Sophie. So he has resented me ever since. Knowing I was in the wrong, I apologized to him. "I'm sorry. 5 years ago I didn't mean for it to happen. My brother and I will repay all the money we owe you as soon as possible." He stared at me and suddenly burst into laughter. Is saying sorry now a bit too late? I didn't understand what he meant. He took out his phone and played a video. It showed my brother causing a scene at his company, smashing his office, and even injuring people. I was in a hurry to snatch his phone, but he sidestepped, and I ended up grabbing at air. He sneered, "Without me, your family can't hold on anymore, can you, Evelyn?" Scheming back and forth. "In the end, you've gained nothing. Let's see how you and your brother can ever repay what you owe me." His eyes brimmed with amusement. For the past 5 years, he had been plotting how to take revenge on me. Now that we were divorced, he no longer had to hold back and could act without restraint. Before leaving, his triumphant tone didn't diminish in the slightest. As the door closed, his voice came through, "You'd better think carefully about how to face Lu Corporation's legal team in this lawsuit." Adrian called the police. He refused mediation, and my brother was temporarily detained. I was left to deal with Lu Corporation's legal team alone, overwhelmed and exhausted. Eventually, I had no choice. Adrian was deliberately seeking revenge against me, and he had countless ways to do it. Rather than running around like a headless fly, I might as well ask him what he wanted. After I entered his company, he and his legal team were waiting for me. It was rare for him to have so much time to deal with me. When I received the lawsuit, I didn't even glance at it and directly asked him, "Mr. Lu, why don't you just say what you want?" I heard him scoff before speaking unhurriedly. "Of course, it's the bankruptcy of the Xie family. Not a single person who schemed against me will be spared." I looked up and stared at him again. I recalled that I've almost repaid all the money I borrowed from Adrian back then, with probably just over 100,000 left. I calculated again the approximate amount needed to compensate for the trouble my brother recently caused. The money in my card, plus the fees from the recent case I took on, should just about cover it. However, I'm afraid I won't be able to afford even a single penny for subsequent hospital stays. Without hesitation, I took out my phone and transferred all the money. Adrian received the transfer, looking surprised, but quickly regained his composure. I said I don't accept mediation. I replied to him, "If President Lu insists on suing, then go ahead. The way you treat your wife, I'll make sure everyone sees what kind of person you really are." Adrian was stunned for a moment, left speechless. Then, as if struck by a thought, he looked at me with a complicated expression. After a long pause, he took out his phone again and dialed his secretary's number. His expression instantly brightened. "How about you take a look at this first?" Today's trending news features a shabbily dressed man kneeling in front of the Xie family's gate, with a sign hanging around his neck that reads, "Evelyn lacks professional ethics, resorts to unscrupulous means, and bullies the weak." Seeking justice. Frowning, I watched the news. The man in the footage was the defendant from a few days ago. The case had already concluded with a fair verdict, so why was he putting on this act now? The situation escalated too quickly. And before I could even figure out the reason, a flood of negative comments came pouring in. Some even dug up the incidents involving the Xie family from 5 years ago. My brother was released, Adrian dropped the charges and agreed to mediation. Now, the Xie family is once again caught in a whirlpool of public opinion. Just like 5 years ago, those people are even crazier than they were 5 years ago. Seeing me being retaliated against, Adrian lost the will to argue with me further. On the day I went to pick up my brother, Adrian was followed by a swarm of reporters asking about the Xie family parents embezzling project funds and being forced to jump to their deaths 5 years ago. When my brother saw this situation, he slapped me in public without hesitation. Then he left in a furious huff, leaving me alone to drown in the crowd. Seeing that I remained unresponsive for so long, the reporters gradually dispersed. Weakly leaning against the wall, I saw Adrian approaching me. Hands in his pockets, he looked at me with schadenfreude. Evelyn, you're nothing special after all. I know he still remembers what I said to him a few days ago. He finally seized the opportunity to show everyone what kind of person Evelyn really is. I raised my eyes and said calmly, Adrian, are you satisfied with the outcome now? Finally getting your revenge, you must be very happy, right? I saw Adrian's expression change repeatedly. For a long while, he couldn't utter a word. I forced myself to stand up, watching as his triumphant demeanor from earlier had completely vanished. Suddenly, I felt utterly exhausted. The man before me. I wanted no further entanglement with him. I whispered softly, Adrian, the 1-month cooling-off period is over. Let's go get the divorce certificate. A flash of shock crossed his eyes, then quickly disappeared. Watching my retreating figure, he said with anger and a slight tremble in his voice, Evelyn, what kind of person you are is now clear for all to see. I didn't respond. Sitting in the car, I thought about what happened 5 years ago, how I forced him to marry me. I truly owe him an apology, but at that time I had explained, after his company successfully went public, I repeatedly asked for a divorce. Yet every time, he would hurl insults at me. Evelyn, you think you can just leave after using me? What you owe me, you can never repay. Because of these words, I started working day and night to earn money to pay him back. In public, I played the role of the Lu Group's CEO's wife perfectly, accompanying him to various banquets and helping him secure deal after deal. Behind closed doors, I fulfilled my duties as a wife, soothing his parents and tending to his emotions. In the days following my parents' passing, I repeatedly fell into self-blame, haunted by nightmares. After jolting awake in the middle of the night, I would immediately put on a smiling face for the cameras upon receiving his call, clarifying his relationship with Sophie. I could even turn a blind eye when he brought Sophie into our home. What kind of person I am. He has seen it clearly over these years. Adrian is a stone that should have been warmed by now. I thought what I did was making amends, perhaps making Adrian hate me less, but he wants revenge, stopping at nothing and sparing no cost to drive me to the brink. Actually, I know that the Xie family has been relying on my brother alone to hold things together these past few years. Actually, I know Adrian has secretly taken many of the Xie family's deals. If it weren't for me, my brother wouldn't have to struggle so hard to keep everything afloat. Adrian hates me, and my brother dislikes me too. I let out a soft sigh. The Xie family is now drowning in debt and on the verge of bankruptcy. And I don't even know how many days I have left to live. Before I die, the most important thing is to find the person who harmed my parents back then, to clear my parents' names and seek justice for them. I tried reaching out to old friends, the ones I had previously asked to investigate my parents' case. But I didn't know that when I rushed over, Adrian appeared there again. Seeing the stack of documents in his hand, I quickly stepped forward to snatch them, eyeing him warily. Adrian looked guilty and spoke in a hushed voice. I just happened to pass by. They're your friends and mine too. What's wrong with me looking at the documents? I didn't say anything. After taking the documents, I thanked him and left, not wanting to give others a chance to laugh at the situation. On the way back, Michael called me and asked me to be hospitalized. This time I really had no excuse left. After submitting the documents to the court, I took a taxi to the hospital. I thought, Staying in the hospital for a few more days might mean living a few more days. New evidence about my parents' case had been found, and the person involved would soon be located. I needed to take good care of myself to clear the truth for my parents. Michael seemed very busy. He said he would come down to meet me and handle the hospitalization procedures. I waited for a long time but didn't see him, and no one answered the phone, so I had to go up to his clinic to look for him. The corridor was noisy, and from a distance, I could see Michael in his white coat surrounded by people. From the side, I heard a nurse calling for help. A patient was causing trouble. I was a little worried about him and pushed my way forward. That person was extremely agitated, pulling out a knife from their bag, and was about to stab Michael in the neck. Everyone was terrified and scattered in all directions. My mind went blank, and I rushed over to throw myself on him. Blood, so much blood. Everything in my vision turned crimson. I couldn't tell if it was coming from my nose or my back, and it just wouldn't stop. Before losing consciousness, I heard Dr. Chen calling my name in a frantic voice. There was also a figure rushing over from a distance. I vaguely saw that it seemed to be Adrian. I was wheeled into the operating room and underwent a prolonged rescue operation. The injury wasn't severe initially, but with my already broken body, the bleeding just wouldn't stop no matter what. Fortunately, everything turned out fine in the end. After just one day in the intensive care unit, I was transferred to a regular ward. When the hospital bed was wheeled out, I saw Adrian standing nearby with red eyes. Though I wasn't sure what it meant, he probably came deliberately to see if I was dead or not. Too bad for him. I'm still alive. Michael rushed over as soon as he got off the operating table. Seeing that I was fine, he let out a long sigh of relief. In the hospital room, his eyes were already red. I never knew Michael could be such a crybaby. From the time I've known him until now, especially when he sees me like this, he always ends up shedding tears. I teased him. Dr. Chen, am I that ugly? He looked at me blankly. I smiled and said, did I scare you to tears? Michael suddenly hugged me, his strength a bit frightening. It's too dangerous. You should have avoided something like this, to be honest. I didn't think too much about it. I just couldn't stand by and watch someone as kind as Dr. Chen get hurt. I'm a dying man anyway. My life isn't worth much. Thank you for saving me. He stood up, looking at me with complex emotions in his eyes, like a doctor's extreme pity for a terminally ill patient. After a long silence, he finally spoke. Evelyn, live well. I instantly understood what he meant. I replied, I will. He really couldn't stay any longer and left in a hurry. Just as I closed my eyes to rest, I saw Adrian push the door open with a livid expression. His emotions seemed a bit out of control, his voice rising slightly. Is this how he treats you? I didn't understand what he meant. What? His tone turned furious. For him, you'd even risk your life. And he can't even bother to take better care of you. I started to grasp his meaning and replied with a smile. Are you worried about me? Are you jealous? The next moment, his face flushed crimson as he sneered coldly. Evelyn, don't flatter yourself too much. I knew it. This is the real Adrian. He's only stayed by my side to witness how miserable my life has become. I remained silent, unwilling to subject myself to more of his hurtful words. After 5 years of entanglement with him, now that I'm nearing death, all I want is peace and quiet. He still wouldn't leave, after thinking for a long time. I finally came up with a reason. He was probably here to urge me to finalize the divorce. It makes sense. His relationship with Sophie can't stay hidden forever. Understanding dawned on me. After a long silence, I said to him, let's go handle the divorce paperwork tomorrow. Adrian looked at me, his eyes unable to conceal the anger within. I don't know why, but now that we've reached this point, I suddenly spoke my mind. Anyway, I'm about to die, so I won't keep bothering you. Adrian heard it. His face initially filled with disbelief, then he looked at me lying on the bed and suddenly seemed to realize something, his eyes brimming with sarcasm. Evelyn, have I always been this easy to fool? As expected, he didn't believe a single word I said. Before leaving, I heard him still muttering curses under his breath. Psycho, to divorce me, she'd even curse herself to death. The next day, I messaged Adrian, asking when he'd be free. He replied that he had no time. And the following days were the same. I think he might be somewhat reluctant to divorce, But the papers are already signed, and all those hurtful words and actions were done. Didn't he go through all this trouble just to divorce me and be with his white moonlight? Now, I'm a bit confused about him again. My injury is almost healed, but my illness is getting worse. Sometimes when I go to the bathroom alone, I suddenly feel dizzy and collapse to the ground. When I wake up, there's blood mixed with water everywhere, a shocking sight. Dr. Chen was worried about me and took time off to take care of me, never leaving my side. Sometimes, when my dizziness is severe, I can't even see clearly who is standing in front of me. Not 2 days later, Adrian called, urging me to go through with the divorce. I guessed it was probably because Sophie had made a big fuss, which suddenly freed up his time. I had lost too much weight recently, my cheeks were almost hollow, and I didn't want Adrian to see me looking so wretched and pitiful, so I made sure to put on some makeup. Dr. Chen helped me downstairs, and from a distance, I saw Adrian walking toward me. His figure tall and slender, dressed in a crisp suit, he was still as aloof and noble as ever. Like an unattainable flower on a high peak, he came up to me with an unhappy expression. "You brought him along just to get a divorce." I shot him a glare and started walking forward. He followed me, watching my unsteady steps, then suddenly said, "Your injuries are healed, yet you're still not discharged, planning to stay in the hospital to chase after someone." "None of your business," I replied. Only after getting in the car did I realize Sophie was actually in the car too. She turned around and spoke to me with an innocent expression. "Miss Xie, you seem to have lost a lot of weight recently." Adrian glanced at me in the mirror upon hearing this. "Serves you right. I'm feeling a bit irritable and don't feel like talking." When the car arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, I got dizzy again as I stepped out. Probably another episode of my illness. I saw Sophie holding on to Adrian as they walked into the hall. Their figures overlapped, blurring my vision of the path ahead. After that, I was helped out of the restroom, my face pale. "I really don't have any strength left today. If I take a few more steps, I'm afraid I'll collapse right here." The line was very long, so I had to text Adrian to ask if we could come another day. After a long time, I saw him and Sophie walking over from the marriage registration office. Probably thinking it would be convenient to consult about getting married while finalizing our divorce, Adrian saw me pale and leaning against the chair, completely drained of energy, and finally spoke in a rare gentle tone. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell again?" I shook my head, staring at his body pressed tightly against Sophie. I forced a smile. "I just want to drag out not divorcing you, deliberately making you and Sophie sick." His face instantly turned grim. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Evelyn, are you out of your mind?" Then he stared at me like this for a long time. Perhaps my current state was truly pitiful. My vision was already blurring. And in my last glimpse of him, his expression was delighted, his tone laced with mockery. "Evelyn, even you have such a wretched day." I really didn't want to collapse so pathetically in front of him and Sophie, so I mustered the last of my strength and took a taxi away, looking out through the open car window. He and Sophie were still standing in the lobby. I watched his figure gradually blur in my line of sight, when I barely managed to reach the hospital with my last ounce of strength. The blood started flowing uncontrollably. Darkness clouded my vision as I collapsed to the ground. In that moment before losing consciousness, I remembered the words he had just spoken. "Evelyn, even you have such a wretched day." Wretched, you say? Not in the next life. Dr. Chen went to great lengths to revive me. My body is already at the end of its strength, and it's really tough for him too. Later, he started taking long leaves to take care of me. I felt bad for troubling him. But he seemed completely at ease, joking with me. "You saved my life, now it's my turn to save yours." My eyes turned red, and my heart ached. Apart from my late parents and my older brother from before, it seemed no one had ever treated me this kindly. Thinking of my brother, I realized he hadn't contacted me in a long time. I know he's utterly disappointed in me, but when my parents' case is closed, I still hope he'll come to see it in person. His sister Evelyn has already made up for what she owed the Xie family. I hope he won't keep blaming me. These past few days, I seem to have regained a bit of my spirits. Michael started taking me around to see the sights. The court also called me, saying the trial is scheduled in a few days and I need to appear in court. Finally, This good news arrived, and I was so happy that I wanted to share it with my brother. The phone rang for a long time before someone finally picked up. It was eerily quiet. And I could hear a dripping sound coming from over there, like something was dripping into water drop by drop. Without much thought, I excitedly told my brother the news, but he didn't seem very happy about it. He just listlessly said, "I know, I suddenly really want to see him. I've been staying in the hospital all this time and haven't even called him. He's probably going to be mad at me again." My brother sent me an address, while I was feeling energetic. I even made him a little cake he loves to eat. Don't be fooled by how cold he is now. He used to love stealing food from me. My brother used to protect me, and now it's time for me to grow up a little. I came to him carrying a cake, and he had already ordered the dishes and was sitting there waiting for me. I glanced at them. They were all my favorites. I set down the cake and wanted to cling to him and act spoiled, but then I thought it might not be appropriate. So I just pushed the things in front of me a little closer to him. I noticed his left hand stayed down the whole time, never coming up. During this meeting, my brother was still cold towards me, but thankfully he accepted the cake I brought. Although he didn't eat it, I could tell he wasn't as upset with me anymore. As we parted, he suddenly looked into my eyes and asked with concern, "Why have you lost so much weight?" My heart instantly jumped to my throat. Even though I was bundled up in a thick winter coat, scarf, hat, and mask, my brother still seemed to notice. I could only lower my head guiltily, pulling my cotton-padded jacket up a bit to cover my face as much as possible. "I've been on a diet lately," I lied. Fortunately, he didn't ask further and left with the cake. Watching his retreating figure, I faintly noticed his left hand wrapped in thick white bandages. I returned to the hospital. Michael was worried about me being out for so long and scolded me quite sternly. Still, I was very happy. The things I had been hoping for were gradually moving in a positive direction. One by one, Michael couldn't help but feel happy seeing me like this. After a long while, as if remembering something, his expression turned sorrowful again. "Lately, my mental state has been improving, yet I keep having nightmares every night, the moment I close my eyes. I see my parents jumping from a very high rooftop, with despair and helplessness tightly gripping me, my brother's anger, his indifference, and then Adrian's revenge, along with everyone's hatred toward me. The past flashed by like a kaleidoscope. I woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in cold sweat. Opening my eyes, I found myself back in the hospital room reeking of disinfectant. Shifting slightly, I tried to get up for a drink of water, only to notice someone sleeping by the bedside. I turned on the bedside lamp, rubbed my eyes carefully, and finally saw that it was my brother. Seeing me awake, he stood up and slowly tucked me in, muttering, "Someone this old still kicks off the blankets." "Brother," I called out to him, afraid that I might be dreaming. Perhaps it had been too long since he last heard me call him brother. As his movements suddenly stopped, after a long while, I heard that familiar voice again. "Your doctor friend said you caught a cold and fell ill, so I came to check on you." His voice carried concern, along with a trace of despair I hadn't noticed before. I suddenly felt a bit sad. Over the years, we've grown so distant. Since our parents' accident, we haven't properly sat down to talk. After a long silence, he tucked my blanket around me and said, "You had a nightmare, didn't you? Go back to sleep. I'll stay here with you." My eyes reddened as I listened to him and lay back down. "Brother," I poked my head out and cautiously asked him, "Do you still blame me?" With the lights off, in the darkness, my brother responded, "I don't blame you. It's all my fault for making you suffer all these years." I pulled the blanket back up, covering my head, and cried quietly under the covers. It felt as if all the grievances from these years had vanished in that moment. After a long while, I pulled back the blanket and saw my brother quietly keeping watch by my bedside. I remembered the white bandage wrapped around his left hand and asked hoarsely, "Brother, what happened to your hand?" By the moonlight, I saw him quickly lower his hand without saying a word. He never liked explaining too much to others, and since our relationship had only just begun to ease, pressing further would only upset him again. I had no choice but to stop talking and close my eyes, pretending to sleep. My brother seemed to sense that I was being a bit cautious around him. After a while, he spoke up again, Let's find time to visit Mom and Dad these 2 days. We siblings haven't gone together yet. If we don't go soon, they'll start blaming us. I replied softly, okay. Not long after, he took out a bank card from his pocket and placed it on my bedside table. The money you previously sent me for debt repayment, there's some left. It's all here. Once our parents' case is settled and that person compensates, you can deposit everything into this card, in the darkness. His expression was unclear, so I asked further, doesn't the company still owe a lot? Then I took the bank card from the table and handed it back to my brother. It's not too late to give it to me after you've paid off all those debts first. My brother tightly gripped that card, his voice choked with emotion. The company went bankrupt and liquidated. I sold the house too, but don't worry, all the debts are cleared now. I fought back tears, forcing out a faint smile. From now on, I'll rely on you, brother. Wherever you go, I'll go too. My brother stood up with a light tone and gently flicked my forehead. He said with a somewhat helpless tone, all right. When I woke up in the morning, my brother had already left. Remembering the plan I made with my brother yesterday to visit our parents together, I quickly got up to wash up. I picked up my phone intending to call my brother to set a time. But his call came in first. I wanted to hang up, but accidentally answered the call. The other side seemed surprised by how quickly I picked up and stayed silent for over 10 seconds. I asked what he wanted. Adrian spoke coldly. Evelyn, when exactly are you going to get the divorce certificate? I froze for a moment before suddenly remembering that Adrian and I hadn't completed our divorce procedures yet. But right now I was in a hurry to call my brother, so I turned him down. Not today, maybe in a couple of days. Today I'm going with my brother to visit our parents, and tomorrow there's a court hearing. I really don't have time. But with Adrian, I did it on purpose. Evelyn, what do you mean by deliberately delaying the matter? You're already with another man, yet still flaunting the title of Mrs. Liu, the CEO's wife. What are you trying to do? Adrian was furious. I don't want to explain and planned to reschedule with him. Adrian wouldn't let it go. If you don't go today, I'll go find Michael. My voice turned cold. Adrian, don't drag others into our matters. He sneered on the other end of the line. If you don't want me to go find him, then see you at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 10 a.m. The call was hung up before I could say another word. Without thinking further, I dialed my brother's number. Again and again, the phone seemed to be on silent, with no one answering. I had a bad feeling. Just then Michael came to find me, and I wanted him to take me to look for my brother. In my current physical state, weak and broken, I was afraid I might collapse on the way in my haste. Michael helped me tidy up, and just as we were about to leave, my brother called back, "Bro, where are you?" I was a bit worried about him and couldn't help sounding anxious. "Evelyn, I still have some unfinished business at the company. It'll be a little later," he said. My anxious heart finally settled down. He seemed a bit off emotionally lately, and I was afraid something might accidentally happen to him. Hearing his words, I immediately felt relieved. After hesitating for a moment, I still felt I should tell him about what just happened. "Bro, today Adrian is going with me to file for divorce. If you're busy on your end, we can go together tomorrow after the court hearing for our parents' case." My brother's tone was indifferent, without objection. All right. After hanging up, I contacted Adrian again, telling him I'd arrive on time. When I arrived, Adrian looked puzzled seeing me approach in a wheelchair. "What's injured this time? You're even in a wheelchair now." I didn't really want to either, but when I went out, suddenly it felt like all my strength was drained, and I collapsed to the ground. It scared Michael badly. Michael didn't want me to come at first, but I thought if I didn't, I might not even be sure if I'd have the chance to wake up again later. The divorce with Adrian can't be delayed any longer. I ignored Adrian and went through the divorce procedures with him without saying a word the entire time. As he stepped out the door, he suddenly turned back and asked me, "Why have you lost so much weight recently?" This was the first time he had ever shown such genuine concern for me. I found it somewhat amusing. Only after the divorce did he finally notice I'd gotten thinner. It seems I've always put up a good front in front of him, but I was never pretending. I'm truly dying. Before I could respond to him, Adrian answered a phone call and prepared to leave. I wasn't far from him and heard a gentle female voice on the other end of the line. It was Sophie calling. She asked Adrian when he would be back, saying she'd wait to have dinner with him. I shook my head with a bitter smile. Realizing how foolish I had been to imagine he genuinely cared about me, I took a taxi back to the hospital and had a good sleep. After waking up, I asked Michael to accompany me to a nearby mall to buy a new outfit. I thought, when I go to see my parents with my brother tomorrow, I should at least appear energetic and spirited. Putting on the new clothes, I looked at my sunken cheeks in the mirror, completely devoid of color, and felt a bit worried. Seeing me like this, my parents would surely feel heartbroken, and I wondered if my brother would blame me for not eating properly. So, I forced myself to eat dinner despite the nausea, swallowing a few bites with the help of water. Go to bed early tonight, and everything will be better when you wake up tomorrow. Michael stayed by my side, not leaving for a moment. I told him to go home and rest properly, but he refused. Perhaps my sudden fainting today had frightened him, making him overly cautious. Fortunately, nothing happened during the night, and when I woke up the next day, I felt particularly refreshed. Michael looked at me with joy in his eyes. He supported me carefully. I pushed his hand away and spun around in front of him. See, I'm fine. I feel like I'm getting better and better. He stood in front of me, lost in thought. The next second, I saw his eyes turn red again. Michael took another day off today just to accompany me. I felt really bad and tried to give him money, but he wouldn't accept it. I just wanted to find a place near the courthouse where we could have tea and let him treat himself. But after searching around, I couldn't find one, and in the end, I had to reluctantly have him wait for me at a small dessert shop. I've been a lawyer for several years now, but this is the first time I've sat in the plaintiff's seat, watching another lawyer win this case for me. Yet after all this time in court, I still haven't seen my brother show up, and he hasn't replied to my messages either. A vague sense of foreboding crept into my heart. He promised me yesterday that he would definitely be here today, on such an important day. There's no way my brother could forget. After finally waiting for the verdict to be announced, I couldn't care about anything else and hurriedly left. Reporters were waiting outside, and I only managed to give them brief responses. As emotions surged, my head began to spin again. Just as I was about to collapse, someone reached out and caught me. Michael's eyes were red, as if he had been crying. His voice trembled as he said to me, "Evelyn, don't rush. Your health is what matters." I looked up and met his reddened eyes, suddenly understanding something. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face as I took out my phone and dialed my brother's number. As long as someone answered, it would disprove my fears. But the phone rang again and again, only to be met with the same mechanical voice. "Sorry, the number you dialed cannot be reached for the moment." At that moment, I felt like a withered tree in the wind, ready to collapse at the slightest breeze, completely losing consciousness. When I woke up, the police called and asked me to identify my brother's body. The moment I lifted the white cloth, I saw my brother's face shattered beyond recognition, just like when my parents had jumped from the high rooftop. That horrific sight I had only seen in my nightmares. The police said he had jumped from the highest point of his company's building. I knelt down, held his hand, and looked at his pale face that would never smile at me again, unable to hold back my uncontrollable sobs. I remember that night, after I fell asleep, I vaguely heard my brother say, "Evelyn, take good care of yourself." I thought I was too sick and hallucinating. Little did I know, that was my brother saying goodbye to me. I went to his company, only to find it empty. In his desk drawer, there was a hospital diagnosis report. It read, "Severe depression plus manic disorder." So, my brother had been ill all along, all these years. His indifference toward me, his uncontrollable outbursts whenever we met, it was because of his illness. He was sick, and I never noticed. No wonder his left hand was wrapped in thick bandages that day. He had been trying to slit his wrist. My hand holding the document trembled, and I instantly collapsed to the ground. Michael held me steady, his hands shaking as he took out a tissue to wipe away my tears. My steps were unsteady as I stumbled downstairs in a daze. The cold wind rushed into my body, yet I felt no chill at all. When I walked out of the funeral home holding my brother's urn, the weather was gloomy with a light drizzle. I looked up at the grey sky. Mom and Dad must be blaming me too. I had promised my brother that we would visit our parents together. I took a taxi to the cemetery and knelt before our parents' grave, carefully explaining, "Mom, Dad, my brother and I have come to see you. I finally found the person who harmed you back then and cleared the truth. You can rest in peace now. I didn't mean to. I didn't know my brother would, in the end." I never got to finish what I wanted to say. After crying my heart out in front of them, I thought it might be better to wait, to apologize to them in person when I go down. As I was leaving, I bumped into someone head-on. I looked up and saw Adrian. He seems to be waiting here for me on purpose, but we're already divorced, and I really can't think of any reason why he would come looking for me. So, I walked past him without giving him another glance. I walked very slowly, and he stayed in place for a while, probably not expecting me to say nothing to him. So he caught up and blocked my way, looking somewhat bewildered. "Where are you going?" The tear stains on my face hadn't dried yet. And I glared at him impatiently. "None of your business." His pupils widened in shock. During all these years together, I must have been too gentle-tempered, rarely speaking to him in such a tone. He froze for a few seconds, then grabbed my arm again, frowning. "Come home with me. I feel like my hallucinations have been getting worse lately." The first time I heard Adrian say the word home to me, I remember, the home he mentioned was the one with his parents. He once told me that was his and Sophie's home, so, we never really had a home together. I don't know what's gotten into him today. Seeing me not moving, he kept holding onto my arm, pulling at it. I reminded him, "Adrian, you forgot, we're already divorced." In an instant, his expression turned so grim. In the end, at an impasse, he reluctantly found an excuse. "Mom and Dad asked me to bring you back. There's a family gathering." How laughable it is. The Liu family, who once looked down on me, is now actively inviting me back to their home. But where is my home? I've been without one since 5 years ago. I shook off his hand and hailed a cab by the roadside. He stubbornly chased after me, his emotions running high. "Evelyn, Mom and Dad aren't in good health. Can't you be more considerate?" I thought of all those years in the past, the days when I tried my best to be a good daughter-in-law of the Liu family. I've been considerate enough. Now, I don't want to step through that door of the Liu family even in death, so I deliberately said to Adrian, "I'm afraid I'll die in your Liu family, and you'll find me an ill omen then." I saw Adrian's expression twist, his face torn apart by emotions. Disbelief written all over it. "Evelyn, what did you say?" I knew he would react like this. He never believes a single word I say. I waved my hand. "Never mind." The car drove away, and my vision quickly blurred. Probably, I'll never see them again. Got off the car and arrived at Michael's place. He's helped me so much, and I've always wanted to treat him to a meal to show my gratitude. But after much deliberation, I couldn't find a suitable place. So he simply invited me to his home for hot pot. After all that talk, it was him doing all the work again. I'm practically becoming a professional burden. The hot pot was bubbling with steam, the mist floating in the air, making it a bit hard for me to see Michael's face clearly. Maybe it's for the best. This way, he can't see my face clearly either, and perhaps I won't look so ugly in his eyes. The hot pot was way too hot, so I just dipped a few bites in the spicy oil to taste it first. Halfway through the meal, I noticed Michael was sweating profusely, so I asked him to go to the kitchen to get some water. The moment he left, my chopsticks fell to the floor. As I bent down to pick them up, a rush of blood gushed from my nose again. I quickly covered it with my sleeve. I forced myself to stand up and placed the bank card and note I had prepared earlier on the dining table. "Dr. Chen, thank you for taking care of me. If possible, could I ask you to scatter my ashes in the mountains or woods? I hope you'll accept the bank card. I know it might seem inauspicious, but given our decent relationship, I hope you won't mind. I've thought about it for a long time, and I've decided not to be buried with my parents and brother after all. I really don't have the face to meet them down there. I don't like the cold, damp underground either. I much prefer the warm, lush forests in the mountains." Before leaving, I watched Michael's hunched back tremble slightly in the kitchen. Why is he still such a crybaby? I walked out of the neighborhood and onto the bustling street. It felt like the gloomy, bone-chilling days had passed, and the warm sunlight was now shining on me, cozy and comforting. I collapsed by the roadside flower bed. With a large amount of blood gushing out, as the crowd gradually gathered around, my consciousness seemed to be fading away. I heard from a friend that Evelyn's parents' case was reopened, and she won the lawsuit. I thought, after all these years, she had finally accomplished what she wanted to do. If I humbled myself and went to find her, the tension between us might ease. To be honest, when we got divorced back then, it was indeed quite messy. I didn't mean to make things difficult for her on purpose, it's just that when I saw her indifferent attitude toward me, I got extremely angry. On the day we just signed the divorce agreement, Evelyn was getting so close to that guy named Michael at the hospital, and I just couldn't control my emotions. We weren't even fully divorced yet. How could she move on so quickly? So I kept finding ways to make things hard for her. That day outside the cemetery, I had clearly come specifically to find her, but the words of reconciliation on the tip of my tongue somehow turned into something else. Damn it, I clearly wanted her to come home. I wanted to talk things out with her. I even wanted to remarry her, but the way she looked made it obvious she had completely given up on me. When she said, just before getting into the car, that she was dying, I took it as nothing more than an excuse to get rid of me. Watching her gradually walk away from me, I started to feel a bit panicked again. I could have talked to her properly. We could have sat down calmly and had a conversation. When I left home today, Sophie specifically reminded me several times to bring her sister-in-law back, so I drove after her. After arriving at the destination, I saw Michael come downstairs to pick her up, and suddenly I felt like I'd been fooled by this woman again. I couldn't accept it, so I waited downstairs for a long time, but she never came out. Just as I was freezing and about to leave, I finally saw her leisurely exiting the residential area. I thought, no matter what, I still needed to talk to her today. Seeing her walking so slowly, I went to the nearby milk tea shop and bought a hot drink, but by the time I came out with it, Evelyn had vanished from sight. I searched all around but couldn't find her, until I noticed a crowd gathered around the flower bed in the nearby park. Through the gaps in the crowd, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. That person looked like Evelyn. I stumbled towards that direction, spilling most of the hot drink in my hand, which left a large red burn mark on my skin. Her face was deathly pale as she lay on the ground, seemingly lifeless. Without a second thought, I rushed forward and held her in my arms, only to realize her clothes were soaked in blood. How could this happen? It suddenly occurred to me that on the day we divorced, after she left, my office trash can was suddenly half filled with tissues. The cleaning lady asked me if someone was hurt. At that time, I was completely focused on how to get back at Evelyn and didn't even hear what she said clearly, just told her to take out the trash quickly. Perhaps at that time, Evelyn had already. No, impossible. I forced myself not to overthink it. Maybe she had just fainted temporarily. I called an ambulance to take her to the hospital. But how could they say she was already dead before the doctors even started resuscitation? The sudden shock was too much for me to bear, and I collapsed right there in the hospital. Actually, after all these years, I stopped hating her long ago. Maybe I've liked her all along. All these years, I was like a stone, but even my heart was warmed by her. I had originally declined the dinner that day, but her brother told me Evelyn would be there too. Somehow, I ended up arriving early. I deliberately left them waiting, hoping she would come to me first, but she's too stubborn. She'd rather cut ties with me than ask me for a single favor. That time, I was so angry that I completely terminated the collaboration with the Xie family. She left me, and the Xie family couldn't hold on any longer. They should have come begging me, but instead, she started doing even better. I don't know why. I clearly wanted to talk things out with her properly, and I could have been nicer. But when I saw her with Michael, inseparable as a pair, I couldn't help but want to make things difficult for her. I deliberately made her drink a lot at the dinner table. Back then, she had schemed against me the same way, except I didn't know she would vomit blood. I was terrified. I carried her and rushed to the hospital like a madman. I didn't want anything to happen to her. I even knelt on the ground, begging the doctors to save her. Many people took photos, and when Evelyn woke up, I suddenly felt extremely pretentious. If she saw such photos, she'd probably laugh at me for the rest of her life. I had all the posted photos deleted. Thankfully, she didn't see them, but Evelyn's brother saw them and came knocking. causing such a ruckus that I had to let him stay for a few days to calm things down. Because of this incident, all the past matters of the Xie family were dug up. Evelyn demanded a divorce, and she completely grew to hate me. I just thought, helping her look into what happened back then would be my way of apologizing. I assumed that by taking the documents, she had accepted it. But when I went to the hospital with her, she went to find Michael again and even risked her life to take a knife for Michael. She went to such lengths for another man. It finally made me see clearly that she never had any feelings for me at all. Later, I saw many times how she smiled at Michael and cared for him, and I finally thought, perhaps I was wrong. I never knew how to love someone. Evelyn has been married to me all these years, showing me meticulous care, and in the Liu family, she has always been diligent and never complained. Yet, because of that mistake 5 years ago, I have been cold and harsh to her all this time. I even repeatedly urged her to get a divorce, and had my sister Sophie deliberately act with me to hurt her again and again. Even during our last meeting, I still couldn't say a kind word to her because of my ridiculous pride. This time, I lost her forever. When I woke up, 3 days had already passed. I found out that Evelyn's remains had already been sent for cremation by Michael. Furious, I confronted him and demanded to know why. How dare he not even give me my wife's ashes? Michael grabbed me by the collar and actually started a physical fight with me in the hospital. How much must he like Evelyn to risk getting fired just to stand up for her? Michael gritted his teeth, his fist coming down again. Adrian, ask yourself, after all these years, have you been fair to Evelyn? Where were you when the Xie family went bankrupt? Evelyn, what were you doing when she was at her wit's end? When she was diagnosed with a terminal illness and fighting alone, what did you do? I remembered again how Evelyn would suddenly collapse in front of me, suddenly bleed, suddenly say she was going to die. I shook my head, trying to hide my panic. You've always been high and mighty, expecting everyone to cater to you. But Evelyn, what did she ever do wrong? What exactly did she do wrong? Michael punched me in the face over and over, completely crushing what little self-respect I had left. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and shakily got up from the ground. It's always been my fault. It's all my fault. Evelyn, she shouldn't have to bear all this. I walked out of the hospital and went to the top floor of the company, standing at the highest point, seeing Evelyn standing downstairs, in a daze. It felt like returning to that drunken night 5 years ago when she whispered in my ear, "Actually, I kind of like you. Actually, my Evelyn, I love you." The wind howls in my ears as I go to find my Evelyn. That's the end of today's story. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. We will keep updating with more exciting stories and look forward to meeting you again next time.